Hey everyone, my name's Jessie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a video where I am recommending you a book based off of another similar popular book. So it's an if you liked this, then you might also like this kind of video. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. I'll start with some fantasy recommendations. So if you liked Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, then I also think you would like Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. The reason being, both of these are definitely adult fantasy. They have younger protagonists who also have kind of coming of age stories, and they take place primarily in school settings where they're training to be assassins. So all of that is very, very similar in tone. I would say the writing styles between these two books are vastly different. Nevernight is a lot quirkier, whereas Red Sister is a little more to the point. And then also the world building, I think that Red Sister places a heavier emphasis on more of a harder magic system. I wouldn't say it's like the hardest magic system, but it's definitely not soft magic, more like Nevernight is. So that's where they differ, but there's a lot in common between these two. The level of violence, the protagonists, and just overall feel of that school setting. Like if you loved Nevernight for that, I think you would also really enjoy Red Sister. The next recommendation I have is if you liked Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I think you'd also love Foundry by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've talked about Foundry a lot on my channel, so if you've already read Foundry but haven't read Warbreaker, this goes the other way as well. Both of these have hard magic systems that are really, really unique and fun, and they also have the trope of inanimate objects taking on personalities, which is something I absolutely love in books. They also have female protagonists who definitely have like a coming of age kind of themed story. It doesn't revolve around that, but it's definitely a prevalent subplot in these books that I really, really enjoyed, as well as just a lot of politics and world building and just really fun writing. These are both infused with a lot of humor throughout the books, and that's something that I love in my fantasy books. So for me, these felt very similar in tone, themes, characters, and magic system, all of which I love. The next recommendation is if you enjoyed Uprooted by Naomi Novik, I also think you would enjoy The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and vice versa, of course. So both of these have stunning writing styles. A lot of atmosphere is fused into this writing style very organically. Both of them have characters that are female witches almost, and are trying to kind of find their place in the world and find their magic. And both of these felt like I was reading a fairy tale. So if that's something that you really love in a fantasy story, you like the fairy tale like atmosphere and writing, you like more of a witch story and following female characters who are being condemned as witches, then both of these I think would really, really appeal to you. I found a lot of similarities between the two. I would say where they differ is a lot of the plot and the direction of the plot is very different, but both of these also have kind of a romance budding in the background. It's very much a subplot. It doesn't focus heavily on the romance. So if you like just a little bit of romance in your stories, then these are a really good option. For some sci-fi recommendations, if you enjoyed Illuminae by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, then I think you'd also really enjoy Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. Both of these are told in very unique formats. Illuminae is all told in case files and chat rooms and surveillance footage, while Sleeping Giants is also told almost in like transcripts of interviews and case files. So both of these are a lot of fun to listen to on the audiobook, but also just read through and get through really, really quickly. Both of them are very political in nature. I would say Illuminae leans a little more heavy on the sci-fi because you're actually in space, whereas Sleeping Giants, you're on Earth. So Sleeping Giants is definitely more adult in tone and leans a lot more on the politics than Illuminae does, but both of these have really fun characters and just really unique writing styles and stories that I think you can get through really, really quickly and just enjoy from start to finish. So love both of these. Another sci-fi recommendation is if you enjoyed Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, then I think you'd also really enjoy The Punch Escrow by Tel M. Klein. Both of these are sci-fi thrillers, an emphasis on the thriller part of that genre breakdown, because both of these kind of take different scientific discoveries and question society and you, the reader, on how would we as a society, as humankind, react to these different scientific discoveries and these different types of technology. Both of these are thrilling from start to finish. They will blow your mind. A lot of you have probably already read Dark Matter, and the Punch Escrow was actually recommended to me while I was in the bookstore based off of my love for Dark Matter, and I can definitely see all the similarities. It read very similar in tone and pacing, and the themes explored were very similar. So I definitely think that if you like Dark Matter, you're also really going to enjoy this one. I do have one historical fiction recommendation that I want to make. A lot of you might have read Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. If you were like me and you loved this book so much, I think you would also really enjoy Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. Both of these are World War II historical fictions. Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale follows two sisters that are living in France but have very, very different paths in the war. And then Lilac Girls follows a group of women, different perspectives, one of which is a German doctor at a concentration camp. One perspective is from a Polish girl in a concentration camp, and one perspective is from an American journalist who's trying to expose what is happening in the concentration camp. So these are both really hard-hitting, very heavy, but so beautifully written, and the characters are really going to stick with you. Both of them are just tales of survival and strength. Can't recommend these two enough. And then my last two recommendations are going to be thriller recommendations, or thriller/horror. So the first is if you liked Stephen King's The Shining. So I have this fancy edition, but it has The Shining in it. If you enjoyed Stephen King's The Shining, I think you would also enjoy The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I would say this is the biggest stretch in this video, but both of these felt very similar in tone to me because of the supernatural elements that are weaved throughout these stories. The Shining is a lot more focused on a family who is stranded in this hotel in the dead of winter, and they're kind of all alone, and the hotel they're in might be haunted, possessed, and it's possessing the father of this family to commit these horrible acts. And then Sundown Motel is a little less on the horror side, a little more on the thriller side, but it also has that like ghost story. It also has kind of the imagery that you got from The Shining is kind of present in the Sundown Motel. They're both spooky, they're both ghostly. I really enjoyed both of these so much. Stephen King's The Shining is my favorite Stephen King book that I've read so far, and Sundown Motel, while I think I would have loved even more of the ghostliness in it, I really enjoyed the scenes that I did get. So if you like the spooky ghost stories, these are good ones. And then I'm cheating for my last recommendation because I'm going to say if you enjoyed the TV show Stranger Things on Netflix, like I did, then I think you would also really enjoy Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. I just had to get this book in here somehow because this is like one of my favorite books of all time. So the reason I'm comparing these two is because they both deal with parallel worlds that your characters are kind of traversing between, and they have the same level of horror in them. Like if you weren't scared by the imagery in Stranger Things, then I don't think you would be scared by Imaginary Friend. The imagery and everything really reminded me of Stranger Things in this book. The other thing I will say is I really like following child characters in horror, and that's one of the reasons I think Stranger Things took off like it did, because we're following this group of kids who is trying to figure out a big mystery. And that's kind of the same thing in Imaginary Friend, where you have the main character is a little boy and he kind of teams up with his friends and they're trying to figure out what's going wrong with their town. And so I found so many similarities between these two stories. The child characters are great, the level of scares is perfect. I would say where they really differ is the themes explored. Imaginary Friend is very heavy on the religious themes, so if that's not something you would enjoy, then I wouldn't necessarily recommend Imaginary Friend to you, but that's something I really do enjoy in my books. Everything else outside of that really reminded me of Stranger Things, so I can't recommend Imaginary Friend enough. Even though I know it's not going to be for everybody, I know that. It is one of my favorites of all time, and I just had to recommend it somehow in this video. So those are all of the recommendations I have for you based off of other popular books. What do you think of these picks? Do you agree that a lot of these books remind you of books that I picked out for them? Do you have any matchups like this where you would recommend a book based off of another popular book? Definitely leave those comments down below. I love chatting with you guys about books. And editing Jessie here because I actually filmed this video prior to Monday's video. So I did not do my Booktuber shoutout in this video, and I want to include that. So today's Booktuber shoutout is going to go to Books and Tea with Anna Marie. I love her channel. She has such a funny personality in this way where she's not even trying to be funny. She just is. I don't know if you're trying to be funny, Anna Marie, but I crack up all the time watching your videos. I love her personality, and her recommendations are awesome. She reads a lot of adult high fantasy that I love. So if you're looking for some fantasy recs, definitely go check out Books and Tea with Anna Marie. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And until next time,